from August 29th, but we'll see the benefits of clean air. But I'll carry on listening to see what more support we can give.
The Chancellor says no decisions have been made on compensation for victims of the contaminated blood scandal. Thousands of people contracted HIV and hepatitis after being given contaminated blood products in the 1970s and 80s. Jeremy Hunt told the official infected blood inquiry today the injustice is being addressed. Labour has accused the government of having an unforgivable lack of urgency when addressing the needs of rape victims. They say the government has not implemented crucial recommendations made by the Criminal Justice Joint Inspectorate. That's following 2 reports. Analysis by the party shows that several immediate recommendations from the CJJI reports have been left unfulfilled. Shadow Attorney General Emily Thornberry has said the Joint Inspectorate said change is needed now, but a year and a half later, ministers have yet to lift a finger on most of their recommendations. A mother whose 7-year-old daughter was killed in a hit-and-run in Walsall has paid tribute to her star. A 14-year-old boy has been arrested following the incident. The 7-year-old girl was taken to hospital in a critical condition, but she later died of her injuries. Police say it happened shortly after 7 p.m. yesterday. They're now looking for a blue and black motorcycle. The teenager remains in custody. NatWest has appointed a law firm to conduct an independent review following the closure of Nigel Farage's bank account. It comes as the banking group announces profits of £3.6 billion for the first half of the year. Both the group's CEO, Dame Alison Rose, and Coutts boss Peter Flavel resigned this week. You're up to date on GB News. Now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your run through Saturday's newspapers with 3 comedians. I'm one of them, I'm Leo Kearson. Tonight I'm joined by the Silver Fox, Louis Schaefer, and one of his many illegitimate children, Jonathan Cogan.
No.
How are you both doing?
That's the first that I've heard.
Well, this is a hard way to find out.
Well, we're bringing back a bit of the Cilla Black surprise. We're going to reveal the DNA test from a sparkly gold envelope.
Well, actually, you know, this is Bring Your Son to Work Day.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of him.
He told me he worked for Sky, and look where we are.
He's already being funnier than you, Lewis. Anyway, let's have a look at the front pages of those newspapers. The Daily Mail leads with time to get off the fence over ULEZ, Keir told. I think Keir could only get off a fence after asking a focus group if they wanted him to get off a fence first. The Telegraph has council tax to double for second homeowners. The Guardian leads with don't abandon clean air policies, warn scientists. The Times have we'll act on every crime. That's the police. The Eye has poll boost for Starmer as Sunak backtracks on net zero. The Daily Star has not now pesky Ice Age killers. And those were your front pages. Let's have a closer look at those front pages, starting with the Daily Mail, Lewis.
Well, it's time to get off the fence, told Keir Starmer, the fence over ULEZ. And the court, this is right after the court gave the green light to Labour's mayor, the Labour mayor, Rishi, on the ULEZ thing, because a lot of these Conservative councils who are not that congested, it's very leafy out there,
yeah.
The air is quite good, and they say, why do we need to do this? And
well, yeah, an ultra-low emission zone makes sense in the centre of London where it's congested, and you know, you don't want to get stuck in a traffic jam as well as you want to breathe air. So limiting the number of vehicles makes sense. But out in the suburbs, people have got families. Yeah. There aren't the issues with dirty air, and also everybody's going electric. All the cars are going to be electric in 10 years, so this seems like a pointless thing, Jonathan.
I don't disagree about that, but also when you think about the centre of towns where there's a lot of people from lower income families, they're the ones who are going to be punished. You know, they've got their businesses, they need to drive, and it's, you know, it really adds up. What is it, £12 a day?
£12.50.
That's my rate here. So like that's considerable amounts of money for us.
So you'd be losing money if this came in. If you drive in.
Absolutely. If I could drive, he wouldn't let me. He would never got me a car.
If couldn't afford the bus pass myself, but if it's not just the centre of town. It's those people out there in the leafy boroughs.
Yeah, Uxbridge.
They need a car. They need a car. And I've been to Uxbridge many times because that's what Pinewood Studios. That's where they filmed Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
With Iron Man, which you can go if you go.
Well, you heard that Uxbridge comedians do better, but you misheard. And you thought if you lived in Uxbridge,
it was
you'd
the
get a
Uxbridge
boost.
comedians. And it's £12.50, and it needs to be said, it's just one more tax. And it's also a way to get people, it's a way to get people out of their cars because they don't want us to have freedom.
Yeah.
And they want us to control
But then if
us.
you're,
No cars for the peasants.
if you're out in the suburbs, there aren't the public transport links, so you actually need a car. And you'll have a family probably, so you need a car. And like you say, it is a tax. This is filling a hole at the heart of Sadiq Khan's budget, which is an absolutely cataclysmic state because of lockdown, which he obviously championed, being a leftist. But lockdown, starved TfL of money. Now he's got to get that money from somewhere, so he's just grabbing it from the suburbs.
But that doesn't mean the people out there who are outside London don't have to worry about this.
Yeah.
It's coming. It's coming to Birmingham and to Manchester and to Chester and to Lancaster and all these different places that I know.
Yeah, the ultra-low emission zone will eventually extend. Sadiq Khan's realm will extend to the Orkney Islands.
To Mars. It's coming for everything. No cars for us, for the peasants.
No, and certainly not diesel ones. Anyway, moving on, what's on the front cover of the Times, Jonathan?
So here's a fun, empty promise. So we'll act on every crime. So the police forces will promise to investigate every crime after years of overlooking lower-level offences such as criminal damage, shoplifting, car and bike theft. So ministers want the police to drastically improve their rates for solving many of these small crimes. And they're saying some of these crimes have virtually been decriminalised. So something like shoplifting, if it's under £50, it doesn't even get investigated, which is kind of interesting. So if you wanted to steal like a AAA PlayStation game, you pretty much could, without getting any, reciprocation. That's not a bad shell. I mean, have your experiences with the police been good over the years? I've had a couple of things stolen, I've stolen a couple of things, never been caught, and I've never got my stuff back.
Somebody broke into my car and nicked like £2.5 grand worth of camera gear.
Oh no!
And I don't know why I left it in my car, but it wasn't visible or anything. But the police, I phoned them up.
I did notice Darius's quality of videos went up.
They couldn't have cared less.
Really?
They just they want a crime reference number? It's like no, send Colombo down and dust everything. I've been making sure nothing gets touched so you can get the prints.
My first day in this country, July, it was yesterday, 23 years ago, I landed at Heathrow Airport, and my bag was stolen.
No way.
My bag was stolen, and I went to the police there, and they said, there's nothing we can do about it. This is the most...
You need the fire department.
Whatever it is, there's the most cameras in the entire world there. Not even in China do they have as many cameras as they have at Heathrow.
He was on his way to work for Oxfam, then he became a comedian after that. That was his origin story.
Brownies in those days.
So that should have taught me a lesson.
Yeah.
Stick to your own country.
OK, moving on. What's on the front cover of the Telegraph, Lewis?
Well, the front cover of the Telegraph is council tax to double for second homes. And this is I mean, I was surprised to find out that basically the council taxes, they're proposing, this is the Tory government, proposing to double the levy of council tax that the government could provide, but the local councils want it quadrupled, I have read, which is *4.
That tax is higher than Hunter Biden. It's absolutely insane.
And the shocking thing is do you know how many, my son, who spent most of his time with his mother.
Don't hit me again.
I shouldn't, I had a chance to hit you because your mother prevented me from seeing you. But how many second homes are there in Britain?
I don't know.
256,000. That's all. That's not very many.
You don't think that's a lot? I mean, that's 250,000.
That means not even. That's less than 1% of the population have a second home.
Right, but so you don't think this will make a meaningful? Because they're saying if we tax second homes, then nobody will be able to afford a nice second home in Cornwall or Scotland or wherever they want to go on their holidays. Yeah. So then the locals will be able to live in that house instead. It'll become more affordable for them.
No, that's actually not true. Because what happens is it'll just it could tank the housing market. Yeah. But the point is,
and also the tourism industry. I mean, if people aren't going to Cornwall to live in their second homes, and bear in mind, people can work from home, so they can live for extended periods in their second home and stay there spending money in the local restaurants and bars and all the rest of it, then that's going to choke off some of the tourist economy there.
Yeah, and how big is the tourist economy? It's big. The point is that some places get better and some places get worse. Cornwall has gotten better and better over the years,
Yeah.
which is why it's so expensive, which is why the locals can't afford to live there anymore. And it's like the town that I grew up in.
Question, does this apply to people who own third homes asking for a friend? Is it the same thing?
Yeah, ask Josh's.
Yeah.
But I mean, with second homes, I mean, it feels like the sort of politics of envy.
Yes,
it's like,
exactly.
You know, you can't. You've got this second home. Oh, we're going to take that off you. We're going to tax it off you. We're going to tax you until the pips squeak, until you can't afford trousers. It feels, you know, why can't they just be happy for people to have second homes and build homes and make people rich so that people can afford first homes?
We don't need to build any more
yeah.
homes. That's something else. It's not the politics of envy. It's the same way that people who come into a country, like come into Britain, are put in the long line. It takes forever to get in, but local people, they just want to be nice to local people, and they think, well, screw the. Can I say the word screw? Screw the incomers. Screw those people.
I don't know if you can say that.
They don't live.
The bit that you put after the word screw was the bad bit, Lewis. That was the bit that's like xenophobic and intolerant.
No, but that's what they're thinking. They're thinking these are people from London. They're from the second homeowners that live in London. They're not local people in Truro or wherever the places are.
Right.
So, you know, to heck with them.
Okay, moving on.
Is that right?
We've got the end of the section with the Daily Star, Jonathan. What have they got in the cover?
So the Daily Star lead with the boffins warn of a cheery new threat to humanity. Not now, pesky Ice Age killers. So this is less exciting than they make it seem. So apparently time travel has been mastered by a tiny worm which was reawakened after being frozen. Your tiny worm was reawakened after Mum gave you Viagra that time. For an estimated 46,000...
It's a bit inappropriate, right, to talk about his mother that way.
Yeah.
Well, you know, at least I talked to her. So basically, this tiny worm has been awoken after 46,000 years.
Can we get back to the story and stop talking about this sexually?
So, I mean, it's a magical scientific story because they didn't expect creatures to be able to survive this long in a kind of permafrost. So it's a bit of a rare find, and it looks like tiny creatures can actually survive for eons, and maybe that gives us hope for Walt Disney, who's been frozen.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I should imagine the bigger the creature is, the harder it is to keep it alive in ice.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a mammoth just thawed out and start running around.
Lewis had a story about that.
Well, the interesting thing is how did this worm suddenly become frozen like instantly? And what happened was
Captain Birdseye there?
Well, it was.
He's always bragging about how quick he gets it from the field to the freezer.
Do you know? You mentioned the mammoths. The mammoths. All those mammoths died like instantly, so much so.
Did they?
Yeah, they did. So much so that when explorers were walking around the Siberia, that they let their dogs eat the frozen mammoth
asteroids.
meat.
So the meat was still good.
The meat was still good because the animal had frozen in place. It wasn't like it had been laying out in the sun or whatever it was.
I'm hungry now.
And there were thousands of them. There was and Velikovsky. It has to do with the planets shifting and the Earth suddenly going on its axis.
Electric universe theory.
Okay, this sounds like another conspiracy theory. Anyway, that's it for part one. Coming up, we've got a Dam Busters refugee camp, lefties getting debanked, and a coup in Africa.
Yeah.
See you in a couple of minutes.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel,
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Leo Kearse and I'm joined by Lewis Schaefer and Jonathan Cogan, the father and son duo. Anyway, kicking things off with The Express, and people are upset about Rishi's plans for housing asylum seekers. Tents, overcrowding, poor sanitation. Sounds like a refugee camp, Jonathan.
It sounds like the time I got locked out of my tent at Glastonbury. But OK, so major blow for Rishi Sunak's migrant plan as RAF Scampton plan delayed by months. So the first group of migrants set to arrive at the RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire won't now be moved until early October, according to the BBC. So the delays are forced due to surveys on 14 buildings still not having been completed. Similarly, there are reports that officials are finding it difficult to find qualified professionals to oversee gas, water, electricity at the site. So it's a real sort of admin error. There's they can't get the right workers. There's problems with the buildings. I think I've just been told we actually have a couple of the sad migrants who weren't actually able to get into the RAF base. Is there a picture of it? Yeah.
That's me when I was shipwrecked. I didn't know you were going to show that picture. And that's Darius when he was my 14-year-old son.
He looks like he's cosplaying as Aladdin, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to look at that.
No, all right, move back to the story. So this seems like a real problem for Sunak. He had great plans and they seem to not have worked out. Was this predictable? Can we trust the government to make big operations like this work? I don't think so.
Well, this seems to be every time Rishi tries to do something to tackle the issue with migrant crossings, and bear in mind we're coming into the busy season when seas are going to be calm, so lots of boats are going to be coming over. So he needs to dissuade them, and part of that is instead of putting them in 5-star hotels, put them in, slightly less luxurious accommodation. Still safe. Meets all the requirements for refugees. But everything he does, every step of the way, if it's not, lefty lawyers gaming the system to get loads of money and teach cross-channel migrants how to pretend to be asylum seekers, how to say, oh, I'll get tortured if I go back. I'm Christian, I'm gay, all the rest of it. I mean, this just seems like another blow for Rishi.
How can it go well? I mean, this is something the country's unprepared for. It's a state of emergency. Hundreds of thousands of people coming into this shore, and where are they going to be put? And so he's doing his best. I think he's doing his best. I think the problem is it's us. It's the people who live in this country. We're too nice to people. It's the world we live in. They don't want us to be mean to people. Yeah. You got to be mean to people to say you can't come in. Somebody should have told me not to come in. I wouldn't have been heartbroken by this guy. I mean, at some point you need to have tough love. You need to say, Lewis Schaefer, you're not coming in.
Yeah, and at some point, I mean,
we stole your bag.
A country has to say, because we're already seeing problems with, like we had an issue a couple of stories ago with not enough housing, so they're going to put a tax on second homes so people can't have second homes. Maybe everybody could have second homes if we weren't like continually increasing the population with cross-channel migrants.
Yeah, but there you go. Everybody could, but then house prices would drop, and then the people who own those houses, and we don't want to hurt the people who own houses, their property value.
Maybe a solution could be, so whenever a left-wing person tweets that we should have open borders and let everybody in, and refugees are welcome. They have to take in 3 refugees.
Well, Gary Lineker took in a refugee, but she preferred being called an au pair, so I don't know.
OK, moving on. We've got the Mail, and nobody's going to the shops in Britain, Lewis.
No, Britain's crumbling storefronts, according to the Daily Mail. UK loses 6,000 retail outlets in 5 years amid COVID lockdowns and crippling, quote-unquote, crippling business rates, with the North and the Midlands affected, the worst affected. And basically, this is every time we have a story like this, I always go, it's COVID, but it's right in the headline here. It's COVID. So I don't seem like a conspiracy theorist. It's COVID. It's COVID. Plus, it's the business rate. So it's not just only COVID. And I'm going to tell you what else. I don't mean to interrupt.
Is it the internet?
And it could be also the internet.
People are shopping online.
But I'll tell you what it is. What else it is? It's parking restrictions on streets.
Because people can't drive in anymore.
Because people can't drive.
Oh, it's all connected, man.
It's not just ULEZ. It's single yellows, double yellows, and it's this.
Yeah, and I mean, Jonathan, this could present a solution to part of the housing crisis if we convert these unwanted and empty shops into residential properties.
That could work. What would be the funnest shop to live in? Maybe like an old, First Sport or something with all the trampolines and stuff. I guess you could take the stuff out. But,
yeah, I mean, part of the conversion to residential use might involve taking the shop stock out. I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting waking up every day with people staring at you through the window.
But they did that. They did that. I don't know when they did that, but in my neighborhood, in Nunhead and in southeast London, it's like every other shop was every other house was a shop that they put a place in. It's very unattractive.
Anyway, The Guardian now, and left-wing people have, for some reason, suddenly decided that closing people's bank accounts is bad, Jonathan.
It's weird that, isn't it? Everyone's a communist until they start a Patreon account or something. Right. Gina Miller voices fear for democracy over closure of her party's bank account. So the anti-Brexit campaigner Gina Miller has said, "We don't have a functioning democracy if new political parties cannot access banking services," after she was told her own party's account would be closed. So her party, which is called the True and Fair Party, that's a great name for a party. That's like calling your
it's better than the Evil and Corrupt Party.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like calling your babysitters the non-diddler community. I don't know. It's not a good name. But she has basically said that she has been denied from multiple banks the opportunity to open a bank account. And most recently, it came with, I want to say Monzo. It was Monzo, yeah. And apparently, she couldn't have an account because they don't do political parties. But her whole argument is, well, how can a dissenting or a new political party ever run if they can't get a bank account?
Yeah, when I was involved with Reclaim, another political party, I mean, it was an absolute nightmare getting banking. And obviously, political parties need banking. You need, you need somewhere to put the money and pay for, your campaign stuff.
But this is, I think, a far more interesting story because. First of all, it's a libertarian question. Should a bank be forced to open up accounts for people? And it's not like the Nigel Farage story where she was basically banned because they didn't want political parties there. Yeah. Any political party. Where Nigel Farage was because of what he said. Yeah. And
it was his specific opinions, and they were spying on him. Yeah. And also with Nigel Farage, they leaked. They were indiscreet with his information, which is a huge breach of data confidentiality.
Right. And that was with NatWest. And I think we need to keep in mind, because there's another story about the Bud Light situation, that NatWest, I don't want to focus on this, but NatWest needs to be punished. They need people. I have stopped banking with NatWest.
Well, that's not punishment. I mean, somebody else is going to give you
liability.
Okay, I had an account, but I never use it. Right. But there was no money in it. But can I just say one thing that's, I think, very interesting, is that Gina Miller's been dogging Nigel Farage.
That's what that sentence was going to go. I thought it was just going to be a full stop after that.
Am I allowed to say that?
I don't know how you found out either. Did you turn up in a car park?
I think
that's how I was conceived.
Because she was an anti-Brexit person, basically following Nigel Farage. And I think she saw Nigel Farage getting a lot of attention from this, and she thought, oh, I got attention too, let me speak out.
Well, also what's interesting about this is when Nigel Farage, when he was debanked, all the left-wing people were gleeful, they were ecstatic on Twitter. Twitter, they didn't care about the principles of somebody having access to such a basic service that's required for day-to-day life. They couldn't get enough of it. They thought it was brilliant. When Gina Miller was debanked, Nigel Farage and everybody on the right came out and said, no, this is terrible. And that's because people on the right have got principles.
Oh.
We've got principles as well as money to put in bank accounts. Anyway, moving on, we've got the Times now, and there's been a coup in Africa. I know I've got an accent, but by coup, I mean military insurrection, not a shaggy bovine. Speaking of shaggy bovines, you've got this one, Lewis.
Yeah, well, this is a story that I think is above our pay grade to actually figure out. It takes place in Africa, which is a million miles away. It's in Niger.
But it relates to Europe.
It relates to Europe because this guy who was this President Bazoum of Niger, which is right above Nigeria or above some of these countries, Ghana, and
next to Chad.
They had a coup, which is such an old school thing. We haven't had a coup in a very long time. This kind of coup.
Yeah.
The last coup we were almost going to have was when the Wagner Group Wagner Group went up to Russia to kick that guy out, and this is where the weirdness comes.
That was a short-lived coup, wasn't it? It's an exciting day.
Russia's involved.
Russia's totally involved. So that the guy who was leading the coup against in Niger was led and backed by the Russians and the Wagner Group, and it looks like the head of the Wagner Group, Prigozhin, what's his name? I forget his name.
Prigozhin.
Prigozhin is back in the good graces of.
Well, of course, I mean, Africa is where, the Central African Republic and all these places where Russia, the Wagner Group specifically, makes so much money. Not just propping up dictators, but also looting the country. They control gold mines, mineral mines, all kinds of concerns.
So it's not so much the nation-state building, it's more getting access to the resources that are already there? Or is there an advantage to having a sort of, a friendly leader there, friendly to you?
No, there's definitely an advantage. And what's interesting about Niger and also other countries such as Mali, where Wagner have been fighting and been, destabilising governments, is that so France was still the sort of colonial power in Niger and in a lot of African countries, Central African countries, and then Russia has come in to sort of oust France.
Right.
And you saw yesterday Putin's offering them loads of grain and all kinds of stuff, and bought the president of Zimbabwe a helicopter.
And they had a meeting. The Russians have had a meeting with these African countries. 17 of them turn up. So those are 17 countries that are not kind of on our side. And are we allowed to say that it's the beginning of the Third World War?
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks.
Anyway, coming up, that's it for now. Stay tuned for burning Korans, racist cops, and a ban on meal deals. Don't go away.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Hope you were able to enjoy some of the sunnier spells we did see around today, but into the weekend there is the increasing chance that we see some showers, and that is all thanks to this area of low pressure that is pushing its way in from the northwest. Those isobars squeezing together, so it will turn quite blustery into the weekend as well, and those frontal systems that you saw bringing in swaves of showers. First thing during the overnight period for parts of western Scotland down into northern England and Wales. Also the potential for another band pushing across southeast England. Just some uncertainty in regards to the positioning of that one, but definitely some heavy pulses of rain possible first thing on Saturday. Not going to be a cold night at all, actually pretty mild in the southeast, but slightly fresher further towards the west, lows of around 12 to 13 degrees Celsius. Saturday then turns into a day of sunshine and showers for the vast majority of us, particularly for Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. That's where we'll see the most frequent showers, potential for those to turn heavy with some hail and thunderstorms as well. With those blustery winds, though, across all areas, those showers will be pushing through relatively quickly, so still some sunny spells around, and in that sunshine, climbing to highs between 19 and 24 degrees Celsius. That main low pressure centre stays with us through Sunday as well. Some heavier showers for southern Scotland down into northern England, but we're then focusing our attention on this area of rain that's going to start pushing its way in from the southwest. Again, got to watch the exact timings of that, but certainly could turn quite damp for Wales, southwest England later on. Further showers into the new week as well. That's all for now. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and let's get straight back into it with the Financial Times. And the Quran is being burnt in Sweden, but it should be fine. Islam's the religion of peace, Jonathan.
Oh, lordy, yes. It looks like the Swedes are trying to burn more books than Owen Jones. So, Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson has said that he's extremely worried about the consequences if more demonstrations go ahead in which the Quran is desecrated amid growing Muslim anger at a series of attacks on Islam's holy book. So, this is a worry that the Swedish Prime Minister has, not just because of he's fearing local retaliation, he's also fearing how that's going to affect Sweden's standing in the kind of global political arena. So Sweden are worried about what Turkey are going to think of this because they need... sorry, one second. Turkey needs Sweden's backing or Sweden needs Turkey's backing?
Sweden needs Turkey's backing to join.
Yeah, that's what I thought. How is Sweden not in it?
I think it's already been okayed. I think Turkey came out and said, yeah, no, we're going to do it now.
Oh, okay.
They're pivoting away from Russia.
Yeah.
I mean, Turkey's not happy about this Quran burn.
No, I can imagine.
Also, they've just had the election in Turkey, so the Erdogan, the leader there, doesn't need to worry about what people think of him so much.
Right, it's already happened. So this is a non-story? No, well...
It's not quite a non-story. I mean, there's certainly repercussions to embassies around the world. We've seen the Swedish embassy in Iraq getting mobbed and destroyed.
Well, they said that was part of a Russian disinformation campaign to make it look like it was the government sort of encouraging it.
So this is what the Swedish Prime Minister is saying, Lewis. He's saying that these are Russian agents, essentially, who are sort of sowing discord by pretending to be Swedish people or encouraging Swedish people to burn the Quran.
Interesting.
Well, that might be true, but the fact is that that you have to apply to the government to burn the Koran.
Oh, yeah.
So this isn't like some random person who just shows up and says, I'm going to burn the Koran. So
you've got to get your Koran burning license.
You've got to get a license from it. And they say there's nothing they can do about it because it's free speech. When the truth is they could even, this is such an important thing. I don't care what you say. I don't think the Muslims are acting irrationally about this. I think it's provocative. And I think Sweden...
You don't think they're acting rationally or irrationally?
Irrationally.
You think it's normal to just go and burn down an embassy because somebody set fire to a book?
Well, what would you do if they burned the fountainhead? What would you do then, Leo? Would you tear down a...
I'm not sure what the fountainhead is. I mean, personally, I'm not mad at books.
I thought you liked Ayn Rand.
4 games, and if somebody burnt one of them, I'd just be like, fine, you burnt a PlayStation 4 game. You know what I mean? I'm not that worked up about it.
No,
I think if you're part of a pluralistic liberal democracy, you can either decide, hey, I want to be part of this pluralistic liberal democracy where we don't kill people for burning the Quran, or I'll go and live in, Saudi Arabia or one of those frictionless utopias where the rules that I believe in are followed.
No, you are wrong. At the end of the day, we need to care. Those people who are upset about burning the Koran, care about stuff. And we've stopped caring.
I think you care too much.
When they tore down statues in this country, people didn't care. We should have cared.
I cared.
I cared too, but we all should have cared. When they start tearing,
we should have stopped at the point of actually killing people and burning people and stoning people to death. I just see that as
because that would have stopped the next thing from happening.
No, that's absolute nonsense. Anyway, moving on, we've got the Financial Times now, and in 2020 there was a scandal as the Democrats buried the Hunter Biden laptop story and stopped it derailing his father's election bid. Do you think they can do it again, Lewis?
Well, you know what? This is one of the most complicated yet simple stories about what Hunter Biden has done. It cannot be explained to people who don't know, but basically he was a bagman. He was carrying around money from the Ukraine and China.
He's carrying around another kind of bag as well.
And giving and drugs and stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Drugs and giving money to his dad.
Yeah.
And the Department of Justice in America, they pressed charges against him, and he should be going down. But instead they made a sweetheart deal, and they basically let him get off. And so what happened is that with the sweetheart deal, they had to take it in front of a judge, and the judge said, this is such an embarrassment that even I cannot let this thing go through.
Yeah.
You go back and you cut this deal again.
Yeah, and that's amazing. A judge in a sort of Democrat-controlled country with a Democrat-controlled media and Democrat-controlled establishment still pushed back against the establishment and said, no, I'm not pushing this plea deal through. And it sounds great. Like Lewis sounds like he's a conspiracy theorist there, but actually this one time, he's not. The House Oversight Committee has investigated money going into the accounts of Biden family members. Some of them who've done nothing to receive that money. Some of them are too young to do anything to receive the money. And they've uncovered pretty egregious evidence of corruption.
You're telling me the Dems aren't all the good things that people say they are? Shocking.
Okay, moving on. MPs have found a novel way of making everyone thinner, banning food. It's great to see politicians borrowing ideas from North Korea.
Yes, they're calling kitchens ultra-low eating zones. It's pretty clever. And this kind of, government meddling is, thank you, it's quite despicable, really. So cook-at-home meal deals should be banned to tackle obesity. So some people say, and these are the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Committee, a less attractive group you will not meet, they've called on ministers to make the move as part of a planned broader crackdown on junk food promotions. So this sort of wimpy little group have decided that supermarkets such as Marks & Spencer's and Tesco, etc., shouldn't be allowed to sell their cook-at-home meal deals, such as Marks & Spencer's Dine-In range and Tesco's Dinner for Two promotion. So what they want to do is they want to impose their miserable lives onto you and tell you what you can't do in your own kitchen.
Yeah.
If you want, they don't want you to be, because they don't trust you. They don't trust you with your shopping.
Oh, and they say, if you have the main, the side and everything, then it's too many calories.
Well, how do they know that?
Too many calories, you'll get obese. Maybe this is my cheat day.
What if I'm banging for 3 hours a day? Well, they don't know what I'm doing. I could be running around, I could be sprinting, I could be... I'm fat and it's disgusting, and he tells me and I have to eat meat all day, but, why shouldn't I be able to shop and eat what I want? Don't tell me what to do.
You've got some strongly held opinions on calories.
Well, I do, and if they're including in cook at home meal deals, which aren't cook at home, they're like sandwiches and chips and whatever.
Right.
I mean, I don't eat that stuff, and you shouldn't eat that stuff. That stuff is low protein. It is high in. It isn't that actually that high in fat.
High in sugar.
But it is high in salt and sugar.
All right.
I mean,
well, let's just try and squeeze in this story because I think it's important. We've got the Daily Mail now, and Bud Light has gone so woke and so broke that they're having to fire hundreds of people. Hopefully, they'll transition to a new career, Lewis.
Yeah, well, this should happen. This should happen to Nat West. Anheuser-Busch to lay off hundreds of employees after Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney disaster. And Anheuser-Busch is the parent company of Bud Light. But I think Anheuser-Busch is owned by InBev or something. It's owned by even bigger.
AB InBev is the same
and so they're
company.
letting go of 2% of the workforce.
Which is actually stronger
this,
than Bud Light, 2%.
Which is about 380 people. And it should be noted that with companies like this, people don't know who runs these companies. They don't have somebody who's like a boss, some old wizened guy who looks like me but not me, who knows stuff, who's been around the beer business forever. They hire some young girl out of Harvard University.
Yeah, some MBA graduate.
Some MBA, and they're called a product manager. And they're told to do something and they go out and do it.
Yeah.
And this young girl, young woman, she basically said, we have to get our ESG score up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Environmental, social, and governance.
Governance, right? And that's why they hired Dylan Mulvaney, who is a woman, a delayed woman, going to be a woman, always a woman. A woman.
More than a woman to
more
me.
than
I mean, this shows that, this woke stuff, ESG, they try and do the right thing. They say, oh, if we put enough transgender people in the adverts, that means we'll be really good and we'll get a good score and we can borrow money more cheaply from Vanguard or BlackRock or whatever the big credit bank is. But actually, it can really damage the business to the point where they're having to lay off employees and they've lost their place as the number one.
But the most
beer.
important thing, can I just interrupt you? The most important thing, sorry, I'm being rude.
No, go for it.
The most important thing is the fact that there was a fight back by Americans who said, we are going to punish Bud Light for this.
And Jonathan, just quickly before we go to break. I thought you had something to say, sorry. Anyway, that's all for part 3, but coming up in the final and funnest section, we've got women's football, a flop for Zuckerberg, and cars that can predict the future. See you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my new show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m, where real people get to meet those in power and hold them to account. Every week, we'll be hearing your views from up and down the country in the real world. Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Nice.
Welcome back to Headliners, kicking things off with the Telegraph, and women are discriminated against in football, and not just by their skill level, Lewis.
Mate, yeah, you gotta, wait till I say what I'm going to say, and I got to be on my best behavior because my girlfriend, wife, partner, whatever she is, she just
That's your best behavior.
To be referred to.
You know, she prefers that I pick one of those things, and that sounds so ambiguous about it. Anyway, according to the Telegraph, discrimination against women in football at an all-time high. And so this is a survey that was done by Women in Football, which is, I guess, asked women who were in football.
They sound like they wouldn't have a bias.
Yeah, they wouldn't have a bias.
Wouldn't be looking for a problem that they get funding to solve.
They asked women who are in football, they said, is there more sexism, sexual harassment, derogatory comments on ability-based gender, whatever it is? Have you experienced this? And 82% said yes, which just shows that women love to complain.
Well, it also shows that 18% are ugly. Hey, Jonathan, what have you got? I just said that to get you into trouble with your girlfriend.
Got me into trouble.
Good. It worked.
I am a big believer that women footballers should be paid exactly the same as men.
Male plumbers?
No, I wouldn't watch it. It's for the proles.
This is not women. No, this is not women. This is not women playing the game. This is women who are like working behind the scenes, doing camera work, doing lines people.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, sexism and harassment and stuff is bad. However,
but that doesn't happen just in football.
Terrible jokes we crack about it. It's obviously terrible, so it's good they're taking steps to wipe it out. Moving on, we've got the Mail now, and scientists are developing technology for cars based on Mystic Meg, Jonathan.
Yeah, this is kind of cool. So in the Daily Mail, connected cars will be able to predict accident black spots before a crash happens. So vehicles connected to the internet can be used to predict where accident black spots will be before any collisions take place, according to a new report. So this is interesting. So it takes the data generated about various maneuvers, such as harsh braking or skidding or like weird corners, and then it basically...
Skidding, is that something that happens in your pants when you...
a real bad skid. So basically this allows highway engineers to kind of work out potential issues. It's all data-led, and it's quite futuristic. I want to say AI, it's not, but it probably is. It probably will be. And it's essentially, it's pre-crime, but for driving incidents. Right. So it's, yeah.
No, what this story is a guy, his name is Andy Graham of White Willow Consulting. He basically wants to control the data and get the government to pay for providing the data, which is basically cars connecting to the internet, where they know where we are, where they control our freedom.
And they can turn your car off any time.
Turn our car off. It's basically very scary stuff. And it hasn't happened yet, but it could happen.
And this is why we don't want to lose our good old trusty petrol and diesel engines, because you can't turn them off from Skynet. Moving on, we've got the Telegraph now, and Mark Zuckerberg launched Threads as a text-based version of Instagram. But it turns out people aren't interested in reading people describe their lunches.
Yeah, well, this is. I was thought you were going to use a joke, which is Twitter killer Threads.
That was sort of an attempt at a joke.
I wasn't.
Shade.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you for the live review.
is no, this.
I normally have to wait and go on Twitter for this.
No,
kind
a
of abuse.
particular joke, because I came up with a joke myself. Twitter killer Threads is struggling to keep people interested. Mark Zuckerberg admits, right? That's what he said.
Yeah.
And I said that Threads is hanging on by a thread.
Oh, right.
Which isn't that what you said before? No.
But,
that's a proper joke.
Tell us the story, please.
The story is that Mark Zuckerberg saw weakness in Twitter, run by Elon Musk, and he's quickly hired 150 million users because...
well, it's tied to Instagram, so anybody with an Instagram account, which is obviously a very popular social media app, can then port onto Threads, this new Twitter.
There's no barrier to entry. Loads and loads of people did it, but now those numbers are really dropping off hard. So it's less than half or something. Or people don't need more social media. We all hate it. We've already got Twitter. We've got Instagram. We just don't need another one.
Exactly. And Twitter. I mean, the reason for launching Threads was that Twitter is full of arguments.
Elon Musk is mean to me.
So it turns out the unpleasantness and the arguments is what makes it compelling.
That's totally
makes it
true.
worth going on.
People want an argument. That's why I'm.
No, they don't.
That's why I'm getting married.
Anyway, moving on. We've got the Telegraph, which is bad news for young men who want to lose their virginity. You might never have to, Jonathan.
That cuts me quite quickly.
Jonathan is very good looking on the screen.
I'm okay. Call in
he's
if you
good looking
can.
in person, but I think on the screen he's even better looking.
No, I look fat.
Well, you've got great hair. I mean, I preferred it on George Michael, but it looks good.
He's got beautiful eyes.
I've been told I look like a young Tony Blair. Is that something?
How young? Like 7.
40. Okay, so the old story is virgin birth induced by scientists for the first time could help save endangered species. So the long and short of it is some fruit flies have been genetically engineered so that they can actually procreate without... can I say sexual interaction?
Well, you just did.
Yeah, fair enough, without banging. So basically, that is really good for species that don't have a risk of being extinct, and they can just do it in a lab, like how Lewis conceived me.
In a lab.
And I guess some species, they get so few. Like there's I can't remember, there's a weird sort of tiger-looking thing. And there was only one left. So they couldn't procreate.
Well, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make single species. This is what they say they do. But where is the money? The money isn't helping women get pregnant and people get pregnant.
That's where there'll be no more men.
So do you think they're going to move this onto the human race?
How can they not? This is such a non-story. But can I tell you something?
This isn't a non-story. This could mean that we're men are redundant. Men are needed for procreation.
Have you not watched TV? We are redundant.
We are
Come on.
redundant. They can just get sperm. They can have sex with anybody they want to. The thing that I found interesting, and wait for me to get into trouble over this. They were doing this on fruit flies, and fruit flies live for about 40 days. Well, they live for about 80 days. And so what they found out about these types of fruit flies is they have parthenogenesis after 40 days. So basically they reach 40 days and they think, nobody's coming along to impregnate me, so I'll do it myself, which is very similar to the way the Western women work.
Anyway, I don't think they wait 40 days, but anyway.
They do it for 40 years.
The show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Saturday's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with time to get off the fence over ULEZ, Keir told. The Telegraph leads with council tax to double for second home owners. The Guardian has don't abandon clean air policies, warn scientists. The Times has we'll act on every crime, say the police. The Eye has poll boost for Starmer as Sunak backtracks on net zero. The Daily Star has not now pesky Ice Age killers, and those were your front pages. And that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests Lewis Schaefer and Jonathan Cogan, and we're back tomorrow at 11 p.m.
On my birthday.
That was Televised Violence with Andrew Doyle, Lewis Schaefer and Paul Cox. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, please stay tuned for The Breakfast Show, which is coming up just after this break. And don't worry, that was a stage slap. I can assure you the father-son relationship is fine. Goodbye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Hope you were able to enjoy some of the sunnier spells we did see around today, but into the weekend there is the increasing chance that we see some showers, and that is all thanks to this area of low pressure that is pushing its way in from the northwest. Those isobars squeezing together, so it will turn quite blustery into the weekend as well, and those frontal systems that you saw bringing in swaves of showers. First thing during the overnight period for parts of western Scotland, down into northern England and Wales. Also the potential for another band pushing across southeast England. Just some uncertainty in regards to the positioning of that one, but definitely some heavy pulses of rain possible first thing on Saturday. Not going to be a cold night at all, actually pretty mild in the southeast, but slightly fresher further towards the west, lows of around 12 to 13 degrees Celsius. Saturday then turns into a day of sunshine and showers for the vast majority of us, particularly for Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. That's where we'll see the most frequent showers, potential for those to turn heavy with some hail and thunderstorms as well. With those blustery winds, though, across all areas, those showers will be pushing through relatively quickly, so still some sunny spells around, and in that sunshine, climbing to highs between 19 and 24 degrees Celsius. That main low pressure centre stays with us through Sunday as well. Some heavier showers for southern Scotland down into northern England, but we're then focusing our attention on this area of rain that's going to start pushing its way in from the southwest. Again, got to watch the exact timings of that, but certainly could turn quite damp for Wales, southwest England later on. Further showers into the new week as well. That's all for now. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. On tonight's show, we have Alex Burgott, MP, Stephen Pound, ex-Labour MP, the Gentleman of Parliament, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. We also have Lizzie Cundy, who's a socialite, TV presenter, media star, 80s pop icon David Van Day, and a legend in his own lunchtime, Gary the Cabbie. And also tonight, TV First, we've got the Yes or no quiz with two politicians. But first, let's go to the news.
Good evening, I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. Plans to move 2,000 migrants to RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire have been delayed until October. Officials had indicated the first group would begin arriving at the former airbase in August. It comes as the Home Office is reportedly preparing to erect marquees to accommodate 2,000 people at the Manston airfield in Kent by the end of August. There are warnings it could trigger legal challenges based on inhumane treatment. The ultra-low emission zone is set to be expanded in London after a High Court ruled the plan is lawful. Legal action was brought by 5 Conservative-led councils. It means drivers will pay a £12.50 daily fee if their vehicles do not meet the required emission standards. A spokesperson for the AA says the ruling is hugely disappointing, but it hopes London will follow other cities by adopting measures to reduce the impact on those who can't afford it. The London Mayor Sadiq Khan says there will be support.
The decision to expand the ultra-low emission zone was a difficult one, not one I took lightly, but it's essential. Next week, there'll be a massive expansion of the support we give to families, to businesses and charities. As it is, 96% of cars in inner London are compliant. 9 out of 10 cars in outer London are compliant. They won't pay a penny more from August 29th, but we'll see the benefits of clean air. But I'll carry on listening to see what more support we can give.
The Chancellor says no decisions have been made on compensation for victims of the contaminated blood scandal. Thousands of people contracted HIV and hepatitis after being given contaminated blood products in the 1970s and 80s. Jeremy Hunt told the official infected blood inquiry today the injustice is being addressed.
We totally understand the urgency of this situation. You know, we recognise the fact that, as I think I wrote in a letter before I was Chancellor, that one person is dying approximately every 4 days, and that there is a need for justice to be as quick as possible for what has been a terrible scandal.
A 14-year-old boy has been arrested following a hit and run in Walsall. A 7-year-old girl was taken to hospital in a critical condition. She later died of her injuries. Police say the incident happened shortly after 7 o'clock yesterday evening. They're now looking for a blue and black motorcycle. The teenager remains in custody. And NatWest has appointed a law firm to conduct an independent review following the closure of Nigel Farage's bank account. It comes as the banking group announces profits of £3.6 billion for the first half of the year. Both the group's CEO, Dame Alison Rose, and Coutts boss Peter Flavel resigned this week. TV, online, DAB+ radio and on the TuneIn app. Now it's back to Lee Anderson's Real World.
In just a few months' time, young men and young women from all over the country were going off to university, a place of learning. They're going to have a good time, they're going to work hard and hopefully get better careers. But in the meantime, in our universities, there are a certain group of people who are trying to influence and indoctrinate our young people. And this happened with my son about 10 years ago. He went to uni, he went to Sheffield. And I didn't see him for months. He came back, you know, many, many months later, and he came back different. He got long hair. He got a beard, his clothes were different, a different attitude, different outlook on life. And I thought, my goodness, Harry, what's happened to you? He says, Dad, he sat down with me on the settee, he put his arm on my hand. He says, Dad, I've been away for a few months now, and I've come back, and I'm not the Harry that went away all those months ago. I'm different now. I'm a different person. I've found out who I actually am. And he held my hand, looked into my eyes and says, Dad, I've got to tell you something about myself. He says, I am. And I thought, Harry, just get on with it. You know, you're my son, I love you, whatever you are. He says, Dad, I'm a vegetarian. Shocking, absolute shocking. Let that be a warning to you. So, joining me now is Parliament's most upstanding gentleman, the Right Honourable Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. Jacob, thank you. It's a great pleasure. It makes a little bit of a difference from me interviewing you. The tables have turned. The roles are reversed. Look, I've been an MP for 3.5 years. And the route for me to become a Conservative MP was quite simple. I was very, very lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. I'd only been in the party 18 months, and I was at that place, at the madhouse, I sometimes call it. But you, Jacob, you come from a different background. I was born on a council estate. He was on a country estate, as I always say. You've got Bob or two from different backgrounds, but people would assume automatically that you've had the golden ticket, that you've just waltzed into Parliament because of your wealth and where you're from and what school you went to, but it wasn't like that, was it?
No, it wasn't. But you've made more impact in 3.5 years than most people make in political careers of 35 years. So it's what you do when you get there that I think matters so much. But now I applied for lots and lots of seats. I started off in Central Fife, which was the last seat to have returned to communist. So my chances there weren't very good. But they were absolutely charming to me. When I knocked on doors in Central Fife, the standard reaction was we didn't know the Tories normally stood here. And what was so interesting about that was I learnt so much, because if you're fighting a seat that you can't possibly win, you've got time. When you're fighting a seat that you are likely to win, you've got somebody tugging you by the sleeve saying, you've got to go to the next door, you've got to go to the next door. There's nothing like that in Central Fife, so I had the chance to talk to people. And the great thing about politics is when you knock on people's doors, quite a few of them willing to tell you about their lives, how difficult they are, what they're trying to do. And that's what you learn from and how you get to understand what the issues, the problems are that politicians in Westminster need to deal with.
So, Jacob, a wealthy man, a successful man, a great family, a great life, a great career in politics. What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Well, politics is enormously interesting and important. I think that's what does it as a combination. That I don't know about you, but I've found that the most important thing I do as a politician is actually the constituency work. Yeah. Now, that's not to say I don't enjoy speaking in Parliament and all the things that go with that. But every so often, a constituent comes to see you whose life has been turned upside down by failures of the state, and by writing some letters, you can right a wrong.